I really wish I knew how to make myself have this permanent conviction of wanting to save the world, I guess. When I think about it, of what do I want, then that is always the thing I end up with. But there's a difference between when ending up with a particular thing that you want, when you think about it, when you reflect on it, and how you feel in the moment. And I'm working on one particular thing that I think might be decreasing the chance that we all die. Very often I don't feel a very deep conviction that I should work on it at the emotional level. It's not like that. But basically, consider what would happen if you were in a room with a bomb and there was some task that you can do in order to prevent the bomb from exploding. There's this game called Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes. And imagine you were in this situation in real life. There would be a very deep emotional force that would push you towards trying your best in order to not explode. And even though basically that's the situation I'm in right now with AI, it seems like my dumb monkey brain is not capable of realizing this. The example might not translate exactly because I don't think it would be healthy to be in a panic all the time. But that's basically the entire problem. It's like that the brain knows how to go into panic and then optimize really hard for a particular objective, but it only knows that if you're in some short term, well, in some situation where in the short term it becomes obvious that if you don't perform well, you, for example, die. Then the brain is good at sort of activating the now optimize really hard mode. And it doesn't seem to be a mechanism in the brain that is, well, maybe there is, but definitely I don't know exactly how to trigger it, which is more like, oh, I can see in the long term, which is not on the order of hours or even days, but like of the order of years potentially, that if I don't execute these particular actions, if I don't optimize very hard for optimizing this problem away, then it will have very bad consequences. It seems like the brain is just not really capable of executing this kind of alarm. Well, or at least I don't know how to do it. And I would guess basically nobody knows how to do it, but I'm not sure. I feel like people that would be described as succeeding in this are probably more like having developed some particular habits that they were thinking about and cultivating because they think that executing these habits will eventually lead to good outcomes. Like, for example, I'm going to do every day, I'm going to work for 4 hours on this particular thing. And then over the long term, I will accumulate many hours into that particular thing. And if that particular thing is actually a good thing to do, like let's say, maybe you want to do skill up, so you want to learn causality. Maybe that's a bad example. But let's go with it. Like causality probably takes at least a couple of weeks if you want to really deeply understand it. And then you're not in panic mode of or in alert mode of I need to really get this done because understanding causality is really important for this particular thing I want to do, for this thing that makes it less likely that AI will kill everyone. Then you can manage to do that by having this habit of, I'm going to put this many hours in. So that is some sort of conscious construct, or like some construct that somebody was thinking about how to do it. How can I make it such that I will consistently take the actions which are actually the good things, in spite of my brain not having the default mechanism of being appropriately motivated to do the appropriate things. Like if there's a bomb, you don't have to devise a strategy for your mind to be motivated and be able to consistently put in the work of trying to defuse the bomb. But basically, that's what you need to do for these other threats that your brain just doesn't recognize, and even if it would recognize them, doesn't even have a good response for handling them. At least not at the same sort of primitive level. It's not a built-in thing. Of course, you can use your reasoning to devise a strategy, but that's very different from having sort of a more appropriately built-in handler for that particular situation to perform the appropriate actions in that particular situation.